One of the things we like to do on this show is have a fair and reasonable conversation. Sort of, instead of a hot take, we like to embrace the fact that we're nerds and over-analytical and really talk about cupcake games, because to me, it's an annoyance to see games consistently the week before rivalry week by major conferences. You heard, Tim, whatever his name was earlier in the video, reference that it has worked for the SEC and the ACC because they win championships. And that's part of the discussion you have. We are in a different world of college football this year, particularly, though, where, as I mentioned with the SEC, and it's also true of the ACC, I'm not sure that there's that many great opponents across the board. When that happens, when the rest of the conference is down, it feels like Cupcake Week stings more because you're not seeing great matchups every single week that excuse the Citadel.
And I don't want to then blame the schools that are looking so good throughout the season for just giving themselves a break. If that's the case, if that's the argument you want to make about how the conference has then fallen off, then why are we not looking at the other members of the conference to be at a more of a grind for these teams that are scheduling this Week 12 drop off in their schedule to save the body?
Really fair point. Now, I went into this discussion expecting to be able to make a huge statement about Alabama specifically and their schedule because of the Citadel and because some of their Louisiana Lafayette games earlier this season. I went in thinking, you know what, we're going to find the numbers. So we went to our stats and info guys that do incredible work, and we said, hey, what's Alabama's schedule really look like?
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, I was stunned by the answer because of how wrong we were.
Yes.
And it comes down to something, you see it up on here on the strength of schedule versus strength of record. And so strength of record is really complicated to explain, but I actually went to the stat weenies and said, how do we figure out?
Why you gotta call them weenies? Don't do that.
Because they're good people. They're my fellow people.
You call good people weenies?
Yes. I went to them and said, how do we figure out strength of record? And the easiest way I can describe it is they take an average of all of the top 25 teams and they create a fake average team based on every metric, and they run it through a program that simulates how any other team, how that average team would play against your schedule with the same amount of days off, the same travel, all of these things. So the interesting part about it is that strength of record, 1, 2, 3, and 4, strength of record, 15 of the 16 teams that have ever made the college football playoff have had a top 4 strength of record when they made the playoff. So what does that tell you? Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and right now Georgia are their top 4 strength of record. 5th is Michigan. It has a lot to do with game control. It has to do with how the computers simulate what would play out. And frankly, the computers are right. Even more surprising to me, and I'll have to look at our notes here because they gave me this awesome note, that the chance that an average top 25 team would be undefeated against Alabama's schedule is 2.9%. That's by far the lowest. The average that a top 25 team would be 9-0 against UCF's schedule, 42%. So they're telling you that basically 42% of the time, any top 25 team would be undefeated.
Right.
That's a huge number.
Correct. And I want to make sure to paint the full picture of what it means to be that average top 25 team. Think of a 12.5 ranked team, somebody that's right in between 12 and 13, essentially, an imaginary team that is then put through the metrics of every single facet of your schedule, of your favorite team's schedule, and it's predicting how they would fare, right? And so that what you just read tells me that a UCF schedule is 10 plus times more likely to be ran through undefeated than an Alabama schedule as it stands today. As much as we want to clown Alabama's schedule, that Week 12 drop-off against the Citadel and everything included.
One more quick stat to give you before your eyes gloss over. If, like I said, the average team had a 2.9% chance of being undefeated on Alabama's schedule. According to the computers, even if you take out LSU, it's only 3.4%.
That's incredible.
So as much as we've talked about the cupcakes, the computers say that the games that they played, the situations they played in, and where they played them makes it absolutely true that Alabama has had to get through a tougher schedule than we think. It blew my mind. I was wrong about it.
Right.
And it shows you what the math means.
And that was always my point, right? It's something to say, they don't play anybody, but to make everybody look like nobody, there's another level of understanding that you have to have and appreciation that you have to have for a program like Bama that's shown a level of dominance, not only this season, but for quite a few seasons.
You mentioned dominance, and it raises a big question. I mean, are we at the spot when you look at the numbers and it shows how good Alabama actually is versus what we think? I mean, we look across the board at all the sports. I mean, you got Golden State kicking everybody's butt. You got the Patriots constantly a contender. You look across the board and you can talk about dominance. Should we, instead of trying to hate on it, should we just put our feedback because Tua's not going anywhere.
Correct.
So they got another year of this.
And I think there's always going to be a good thing for dominance because it's a villain that everybody then gets to hate on. I don't understand why anybody would assume that one person winning all the time is just this terrible thing and everybody's going to check out from the sport. No, you're going to tune in because that one time that they do lose, everybody's going to be talking about it. And you want to be a part of the one time that they do lose. And the counterpoint to that is that you also want to be a part of witnessing this dominance at a level that is never seen in any given sport in any given time period. And so you want to be on both sides of that viewing pleasure if you possibly can be.